Selam millet, Nasıl Başardılar serisinin yeni videosuna hoş geldiniz. Bugün Nasıl Başardılar serisinde yanımda Pedro David Espinoza var. Pedro David, Peru, Birleşmiş Milletler'in CEO'su, PD Ventures'un kurucusu ve bir TED konuşmacısı. Nasıl Başardılar başlıyor. Okay. Firstly, welcome to my video, Pedro. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you.
Yeah. Okay. So, Pedro, can you mention about yourself a little? Who are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I was born and raised in Peru. My mom is from the mountains, Pampas, which is 12,000 feet above sea level, 3,800 meters. And my dad was raised in the Amazon. And so I'm a hybrid and combination of everything. I did everything in Peru until college. I went to undergrad at Berkeley, grad here at Stanford Engineering, and then the 2-year HBS, Harvard Business School AI engineering program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will highlight some parts in Turkish.
Yeah.
Arkadaşlar evet, Berkeley'den mezun olmuş, Stanford'da grad okulunu tamamlamış ve sonra Harvard'a gitmiş. Yani tam bir şampiyonlar gibi. It's like a championship leader, you know?
You're too funny. You're too kind.
Okay. I want to mention about the grad school in Stanford University. So you told me that you had the summer session in here?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
Firstly, can you share your experience on summer session?
Yeah, of course. Well, summers at Stanford are unique. I came here when I was 19, literally like 9-10 years ago. And I think the whole aspect of community, people here being so relational, willing to help, willing to give advice, it's so different from Berkeley. I mean, Berkeley is a great institution. It's just Stanford is way more collaborative. And I remember as a first-time tech founder, as the CEO of SmileyGo, a lot of MS&E CS professors were willing to meet with me at the GSB as well. Everyone's just so willing to be open and share their wisdom with you here at Stanford.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to mention about all of your experience, but firstly with your first startup. So you have startups and I want the people also know about it. So can you share about your experience? But of course, start with your first experience, SmileyGo, that you started here.
2014, I founded SmileyGo here at Stanford Engineering 145. SmileyGo is a match.com for philanthropy, a Tinder for nonprofits and companies to match. We essentially index the data of 1.7 million nonprofits in the US using AWS supercomputers to make it easier for companies like a Google, like a Dropbox, like a Motorola, like an NVIDIA to measure, to invest, to compare, to interact with NGOs. And so we had users in 34 countries, hired like more than 20 employees. We raised an angel round, a pre-seed round. And as a 19-year-old founder, to be very candid, Bara, it was exciting. It was thrilling. Sometimes it was scary. Sometimes it was crazy. But I think that's what Silicon Valley is known for, right? It's like you fail forward, you make a new mistake, you hire people, then you miss the funding round, so you have to let people go. The product doesn't really push, or the code, or GitHub, or whatever. And so it's all about iterating, deploying, adapting, pivoting, because no one is born knowing. No one. Like, everyone needed a team, right? Together, we're stronger.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned about that you started in your tech entrepreneurship class, and I'm super excited that I also have this another class that taught by Rebecca Wang, which is your professor, right?
Yeah, love Rebecca.
Yes.
So, like I said, basically, SmileyGo was a SaaS, a software as a service AI company, and we got incubated at Google Accelerator, which is part of Manos Accelerator, like a specific tech incubator for Hispanics,
such big companies,
Latinos. And then later in 2016 and 17, we were part of the full cohort of Skydeck. Also, Skydeck being the Berkeley premier technology accelerator.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So, also, you worked with a company in Turkey.
Yes. We had users like I said, 37 countries. We worked with Yıldız Holding, Godiva Chocolate. We matched all these global companies with local nonprofits in education, in technology, in food, in habitat, in climate to improve impact.
Yeah.
So we essentially helped nonprofits get funding by matching them with AI algorithms.
Okay, so let's continue that I introduce you as a TED speaker. And so you want to mention about how do you become a TED speaker? And yeah.
Thank you, Bara. I'll repeat this again. It's all about relationships,
Also,
right?
I will put the link of your TED speech at the description. You can find it in the description.
Everything, there's a threshold to analytical intelligence. And I did not create this. Malcolm Gladwell says this in Outliers. Once you're here, like you are here, we are at Stanford, right? Arguably one of the best, if not the #1 school in the world.
Yes.
And Berkeley's amazing too. I love Berkeley, my alma mater. Once we're here in the Bay Area, it's more of who knows you, who you know, and who are your sponsors. What is the difference between a sponsor and a mentor? A mentor is someone, Bara, who gives you advice, insight. But a sponsor is someone who opens doors for you, is wearing your t-shirt when you're not there, in the boardroom, in the hiring room, in the promoting room. And so in my experience, I've been able to create startups, nonprofits, books, TED Talks. I'm launching a podcast in Thanksgiving because of the sponsors. And to answer your question, it was in 2017, my really good friend, Febin Bellamy, the CEO of Unsung Heroes, he was a TED speaker before. And he's like, hey, they're searching for a non-traditional founder, an exotic, diverse, weird, unique entrepreneur. He's like, you're from Peru, you guys eat guinea pigs, you speak like 3 or 4 languages. He's like, I'm gonna vouch for you. So it's thanks to him that I gave my TED Talk at Washington, D.C. in Georgetown in 2017. Build the bridge.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to also mention about that. You told me some circle that builds from companies, from different peoples. So how do you define your own community, your own connections? Like, how did you build it?
Great question. It's really all about being intentional and relational over transactional when it comes to building relationships. To be candid, I'm not a big fan of the word networking. I'm a true believer in connecting and relating with people. So I'll share you a story.
I will agree on that one.
When I was a 19-year-old founder here in San Francisco Bay Area, I was taking multivariable calculus. I'm sure many engineers and computer scientists in the room like us. And it was an 8 a.m. class. And I remember right after class, I was starving. I eat all day. We just ate at Lakeside.
Yes.
I eat a lot. And I was at the Golden Bear Cafe in Berkeley. It was packed. Like students, freshmen, sophomore. And I see this 80-year-old businessman wearing a suit and a tie. And I'm like, like, he seems very wise. And I remember my mom's words of, Pedro David, júntate con los mejores, rodéate de gente sabia, surround yourself with the best and learn from the wise. And so I approached this gentleman. I'm like, hi, my name is Pedro Espinoza. What is yours? And he's like, oh, I am Frank Baxter. I'm like, Frank, can I grab food next to you? He's like, okay. So he moves, right? And then I'm like, Frank, why are you here? And this, Bara, is the immigrant hustle that you and I have of being intellectually curious and having that hunger, that grit. And Frank is like, well, I'm a trustee at the university, at the board. The meeting got rescheduled. I was hungry. I'm in campus. Why not? And I'm like, holy smokes. I've never met a board trustee at any university. We're at Berkeley, the #1 public university in the world. Let's talk. And immediately, guys, I see that Frank Baxter is wearing a US flag right here. Those pins on his suit. And I'm like, you're also wearing a Latin American flag. It was from Uruguay, right next to Argentina.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I used to be the US ambassador to Uruguay. And so we start speaking in español, in Spanish. You speak Spanish too. See?
A little bit.
Un poco.
Sí, un poquito.
So 2 different people from distinct generations, religions, ethnicity, zip code, nationality, mother tongue, political affiliation, everything. But we bonded over Spanish. Long story short, he gives me his business card, and can you guess who was the first investor in SmileyGo when I was 19?
No way.
Frank Baxter, right? The CEO of Jeffries, the board trustee at University of California, Berkeley Foundation, the ambassador to Uruguay. And he introduced me to other venture capitalists. And then when I started writing my first book, Differences That Make a Difference, he was the first CEO I interviewed out of the 100 CEOs.
Also, you made interviews just like me. Yeah, nice. Okay, so how did it go with Rose Fam? Let's now pass to this topic. Can you just mention about the idea?
Yeah, of course. And thank you, Bara. We are accelerating from 19-year-old me to 20s and late 20s now. Rosefem.com, for those of you that don't know, it's my latest startup entrepreneurial adventure. I am co-founding it with one of my really good friends from Berkeley. Her name is Leanne Jarvis. And the mission is really to empower women, to help women from a holistic and integrative perspective when it comes to healthcare. Leanne and I, we are firm believers that health should be holistic. Like our mental health, nutrition, what we eat, how we sleep, our personal relationships, friendships, families, it's all interconnected. You can't be physically healthy if you're not exercising. If you're fighting with your husband or boyfriend or fiance every day and every night. And so the vision of Rose Fem is really bringing a holistic approach for healthcare. How do we do this? Number one, we're going to use AI to translate NLP, all the medical terminologies and abbreviations and acronyms to help the common Joe, the common, Rosie or whatever in Alabama and Mississippi and Chico really understand about her health. And a lot of women here in Silicon Valley don't really converse and talk about menopause or puberty or their period or their hormonal malfunctions. It's more than 85% of women have been overwhelmed in the US and have hormonal imbalances. And a lot of women feel that the doctors, their OB-GYNs, really don't understand, and they don't communicate with the nutritionist, with the pregnancy specialist, with the lactation specialist, with the counselor, with the pastor. And so we're creating this women's health platform to really focus on the holistic health of women today.
Yeah, so it's also about breaking taboos between people.
Yeah,
how nice it is. Congrats on that. Really
Thank you.
wise idea.
Thank you.
Okay, but I also wonder about, I obviously have another question.
Go for it.
I wonder about what happened between your first startup and your last startup. What did you learn? When did you fail? How did you learn to become successful?
You're very kind. This is just the beginning. So I've made so many mistakes. First of all,
mention about these mistakes. Let people learn about it.
Here at Stanford, when I was 20, 21, I dropped out of an academic quarter. I dropped out of a quarter because I was overwhelmed. I overcommitted. I was not sleeping well. My parents split up in 2015, and they started having major issues since 2015 and officially in 2019. And honestly, that really affected me and really broke my heart. And so, yeah, I dropped out. And even in business school, the 2 years at Haas in Berkeley, I failed managerial accounting. I had to retake the class in the summer. The first time I applied to become a U.S. citizen, we're immigrants, right? We're international. I got rejected. I didn't make it. I didn't pass.
Okay.
And it's really learning rejection that's redirection, right? I'm a firm believer, and I'm open about my faith, that doors get closed. God closes doors so we could learn and get pruned and eventually grow as entrepreneurs and leaders. Another example, and I'll give you more startup related, the second startup I did was Scholar with my co-founder, Richard Zhang from Princeton. We were allured by the big names of companies. For instance, the IBMs, the NVIDIAs, the Microsofts, the Googles, right? And so we started giving out trials, demos for free. We never charged for pilots. And can you guess, when we tried to consolidate the partnerships and start monetizing and charging, did we? It was extremely hard, right? So as a first-time, second-time tech founder, being allured and being amazed by big names of companies sometimes can be intimidating. And let's face it, right? It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay there.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the next point of having your personal board of advisors, personal board of directors is so important, especially as international leaders, as first-generation college students, as entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley.
So you were persistent on keep going, even the failure you had.
Yeah, and we haters gonna hate. I'm being complete. There's always gonna be people who are like, that's a stupid idea, or you're weird, or you're wasting your time. In Peru, in the US, there's always gonna be enemies. You can't make people love you all the time, right?
Yes.
And I think for me, especially as a middle schooler in Peru, I was not a popular kid at all. Even in college, you know, like I was very nerdy. I love math. I think in numbers. You know, my co-founder she says that I'm a calculator, like I calculate ROIs and I'm Mr. Efficiency. So yeah, I'm just very driven by math and numbers.
And now you're popular in Silicon Valley.
You're so funny. You're so funny.
Okay, so yeah, Silicon Valley. So I want to know about Silicon Valley culture. Like, how is the culture? How is people, atmosphere, and everything?
Yeah, great question. Keep in mind, I came here in 2014, so I've only been here 10 years. But I think the culture here is very collaborative and open. What do I mean by this, Para? Unlike other cities, and I've been to 40 countries in 6 continents, and I've lived in different places as well, leaders and humans here are very open. Like, I come from a business trip like Ireland for the Forbes 30 Under 30 Forum, or I come from Davos, Switzerland, the Schweiz, and I'm like, you know, I only have like 5 days in layovers before heading to the Australian Open in Melbourne, and I reach out to like the CIO of Cisco, or to the CEO of Veritas Technologies, or whoever my mentor is, and people here make time.
How did you reach them? People will wonder about it.
Good question. So most of these people are friends of friends. Like I said, I came here in 2013 as an immigrant, international student. I try to do the normal immigrant route of applying to banking, consulting, accounting, right? ABC in business school. Guess what? I got rejected. I knew nobody. Like, no one referred me at Apple. I applied at Apple when I was 18. I applied to Deloitte. I applied to McKinsey, BCG. Rejection. So summer of 2014, I was like, well, I can't really work for somebody else. Might as well start and work for myself, like be an entrepreneur, right? Because no one wants me. I need to learn to appreciate and value my own self and see value in me. And so I got into Stanford, started Smiley Go, and the rest is history.
Yeah, okay. So also I want to ask that, is there anything that you're struggling with in here? Is that any moment that it was hard for you, maybe overcome with?
Great questions. So many things. I mean, cultural misfits and culture shocks are real. So in Peru, I grew up with like cold water. I shower with cold water every day, regardless of the day. And like, I think at Berkeley, when I went to the showers, like it was like a sauna, like steam room and stuff. And then another thing is brunch. I don't understand brunch, and I know I'm extremely unique and weird, but like every day I wake up at 6 a.m. Bara, like regardless of the day, Sunday, Saturday, like if I go to bed at 1 a.m. or 9 p.m., I'm up by 6 a.m. No alarm. I'm just wired that way. No caffeine either. No alcohol. And I think as a first-time founder and international student at Berkeley, I had to wait till like 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. for Crossroads to open for brunch. I was starving. Like all these different peculiarities of American culture really made it different for me. I think another thing too that I've been criticized by many Americans is that I say we too much. And in Peruvian culture, I think it's similar to Turkish,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Teşekkürler, right?
Teşekkürler.
Teşekkürler. We say we because we think in families and communities, and we care for our aging parents. We care for our loved ones and grandparents. And you know, my mom has Parkinson's. I'm pretty open about it. I care for my mom. I'm a caregiver. I go to Peru like 6 times a year. But anyway, in the US, many times, people are like, Pedro, why do you say we so many times? Like, I don't understand. You confuse me. But that's part of my culture, right? I think of us as a unity and as teams rather than me, because this life is not about me.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Yeah. So, about community. You want to share your thoughts on community?
Yeah. Oof. Great question. I think number one for me is having this fellowship. I think I would not be here where I am today in my late 20s if I didn't have that community of people who pray for me, who water me as a plant, who love me, who care for me. For me here at Stanford is Chi Alpha, which is a fellowship, a Christian fellowship. And people here genuinely care for me. Unlike my non-close friends relationships, most people in the Valley and in the Bay Area, to be candid, are like, oh, Pedro, how's your new venture capital fund? Or congrats, you got the 30 under 30. How's that? Or like, oh, you got the Silicon Valley 40 under 40. Or like you sold your startup, or you're starting a new startup, or you joined the board of trustees at Notre Dame in Belmont, which is all great. I'm not complaining, but it's very shallow, right? It's not like, hey, how are you doing? Like, are you sleeping well? How can I pray for you? Are you exercising every day? How are your friendships? How are your relationships? Are you dating? Like, we are more than just being entrepreneurs, right? We have to be human.
Yeah, I see. I understand. Okay, how are you? How do you feel? I just wanted to ask because I'm interviewing about TED Talks, your startup.
And there is a season for everything, right? Ecclesiastes 3:1 talks about there's a time and season under the sun. And so perhaps my time in Peru was about serving and being very selfless and suffering. But now that I'm here, I'm rebuilding my community, bought a second house 10 minutes away from Stanford, sold a lot of NVIDIA stock. And what else did I do? Launching my venture capital fund with one of my best friends, Ernie Romero, Ernesto, who's Peruvian. Like I said, co-founded Rose Fem with a really great friend of mine, Leanne, and can't really complain. You know, I eat homemade food every day, Peruvian cuisine. I love cooking, live with auntie, family first. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so you also want to share about the books you've written and also the products?
Sure.
Yeah, you need to share.
Yeah, so this is Differences That Make a Difference. It was published in 2019.
What is it about?
I interviewed 100 CEOs on the future of work.
And 100 CEO interviews.
Yeah.
Impressive, okay.
At the time, Reed Hastings from Netflix, Catherine Marinello from Hertz, Eric Schmidt was the CEO at Google, Dan Schulman at PayPal, all on how inclusion fuels innovation. What works, what doesn't work.
Okay.
And my really good friend of mine and mentor, Pat Gelsinger, the Intel CEO, wrote the forward.
Nice.
So I did this when I was 23, 22. And then the second one just came out 2 months ago, The Real ROI.
New book. Congrats.
And it's a sequel, and it's mostly focused on AI for trust and for skills and inclusion. So now that we live in the AI age, right? We all live and exist in this AI revolution. How can we embrace it to create trust among teams? Because everything is spread out. Work from home, hybrid. You have teams in APAG, in Australia, MENA, in Europe, in Africa, and South America. How do we become trustworthy in teams? And I interviewed 50 CEOs here, like Michael Dell, Shelly Archambault, General David Petraeus, and many, many, many different CEOs.
Congrats, it's amazing. And one more product.
That's
you need
right.
To show us.
And the proceeds of my book go towards PAN Peru. So PAN Peru is a nonprofit, a 501c3, in which we empower women to become entrepreneurs. So we have about 100 women in the cohort. These are women from my mom's pueblo, Pampas Grande, 3,800 meters above sea level. And they make the alpaca beanies and hats and scarves. You've seen alpacas, right?
Yes.
So
how nice.
Bara, I'm very intentional in giving back. Like I said, this life is not about me, and I really care about empowering the next generation of leaders. Yes, you don't need a title to help. You don't need to be a CEO to help another CEO. You don't need a title to be a leader. My parents really instilled these values in me, right? Of giving back, of being relational, of being down to earth, and being coachable. I think when you recognize you don't know everything and you're self-aware, people really want to help you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for these, also life experience.
Yeah.
An experience on your Silicon Valley and your startups.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to share with the audience?
Well, people always ask me what was the first speech, given that I've given like 310 speeches. Honestly, it was when I was 9 in Nashville. So my mom lost her green card, which is kind of funny, and we had to renew everything USCIS in Tennessee. My uncle's a pastor in Nashville. And so first week of class, one semester at David Lipscomb, my classmates were like, Pedro, where are you from? And I said, Peru. And they're like, where the heck is Peru, man? We're 9. I was like, South America. They're like, where is South America? And I'm like, gotta be kidding, right? And so I stood up, I literally pulled the Rand McNally map, and I was like, guys, North America's here, South America, Brazil's here, Peru's next to it. And I gave a whole spiel on Peru having 3 regions, the coast, the beach, that's where I'm from, the mountains, the Andes, mom's from the Sierras, and the Amazon, dad's from the Amazon. And at the end of my speech, Bara, my teacher, and I hope she listens to this because I love her.
I hope she does.
Miss Lee Parrish, Miss Lee Parrish. She said, Pedro, that's leadership. Like, that's entrepreneurship. She clapped and people loved my speech. Which was crazy to me because as a child in Peru, when I was 6 or 7, I had a behavioral clipboard. Can you guess why?
Why?
Because my hyperactivity and my love for asking questions and my curiosity and intellectual vitality were seen as negative traits of my personality. So every teacher every day had to evaluate me and say if I behaved or misbehaved. It was terrible. But then when I was 9 in Nashville, that changed my life. America completely changed my self-awareness of my skills as an entrepreneur, as a leader and innovator. I came back to Peru after those 6 months and everything changed. Like my confidence, my certainty, my faith, my parents really encouraged me to try, to fail forward, and really learn that the strongest power is not the speed of light or speed of sound, but it's willpower, the power of will in Christ. So yeah.
Okay, so Pedro, really I'm grateful for you to joining my video. You just share so many like wise information and your experiences, so thank you for joining my video.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Okay guys, so you listened Pedro David Espinoza, and he shared like the piece of information about his life, about Silicon Valley, about his experiences. So do not forget to subscribe for more contents and take care. Okay, so let me do the Turkish closing outro. Evet arkadaşlar, Pedro David Espinoza'nın hayat derslerini, Silikon Vadisi düşüncelerini, her şeyi şu anda dinlediniz. Bence yani etkileyici bir konuşma, öğrenilmesi gereken şeyler. Daha fazla video için takip etmeyi unutmayın. Kendinize iyi bakın. Görüşürüz. Yeah, also let's do a thumbnail photo. What should we do?
What, there?
Like we can just stand here and do something. So I will just take the screenshot of it and put like, what should we do? It should be by sitting.
Oh, sitting. Yeah. Well, I always do this, but if you want to do something,
let's do this. Okay, I will take screenshot. Perfect. Also, I will do the Turkish opening one more time because I didn't like it. So let's just acting like it's the opening.